and that a little part of the mind, like a little fish in the pond, moving very gently so as not to disturb the waters. A kind of spy of the mind, if you will, spying on yourself. And this little spy of the mind, just the little fish, sits in the pond very quietly, resting at ease and in clarity, and allowing the process to follow its own unfoldment without disturbances. And then all the thoughts, feelings, and other buried things that come up, you just let them arise and flow like bubbles arising from the depth of the pool. And when they get near the surface, they come to the surface and they pop of their own accord. Usually with the Maitreya lineage, they mention the famous 6 examples, which I've taught here before. One's mind should be as innocent and fresh as a 3-month-old child lying in bed going ga ga goo goo. Can I hear you do that, Stephanie?
No.
No. And the idea with in the Buddhist world, we think a child doesn't really develop conceptual thinking in concepts in a very sophisticated way for the first 6 months or a year of its life. So it sort of thinks without making little borders between things. Now with adults, their conceptual activity becomes strong. So when we look at one thing, we lose sight of the thing next to it. And we look at that thing next to it, we lose sight of the first thing. The mind tends to hop like that from one to one to one to one to one without much sense of the other things. So to leave the mind relaxed in that sort of non-conceptual state or non-conceptualizing state or non-dualisticalizing state. And the other is to have it with a kind of a waking up energy, sort of like sunrise energy. Some texts say, like when a lot of Asians, when the Tibetans and Central Asians, they usually get up at dawn and then they meditate until about 5 minutes before sunrise. And then they go outside and welcome the sun. And sometimes they'll sing a sun welcoming song. Like pretty sun, very pretty sun, little bit happy too. Shine, oh shine, oh shine. Nima sharo, kipo nima sharo, sharo kipo nima sharo. There's that sort of happy, joyful, a new day, fresh feeling with the sunrise always. So that happy, joyful, new day, freshness feeling to be there in one's meditation. And the ocean and the waves, thoughts and their expressions, a lot of detail or a lot of explanation is given to that metaphor for how to notice the oceanic side of one's mind and the manifest or the expressions of one's mind. To notice the one flavoredness or one tasteness of the thinker and the thought of. The experiencer and the experience. They're one taste nature. At previous Mahamudra workshops, I've mentioned is sometimes done sequentially with the five senses. To put the mind, for instance, on a sound. Like ga, ga, goo, goo. Some of us are too mature to do that sort of thing. Not me. We put our mind on that kind of any kind of sound, or any smell, any sensation. And just notice the unity of the experiencer and the experienced. How those are not two things. Conceptually, we think one is experiencing the experience, and the experience is being experienced by an experiencer. But it's not really like that. The two are of one inseparable nature at the time of the experience. So in Mahamudra retreats, one can experiment with that, with all of the sensations. And then the idea of like a pain, for instance, you were mentioning a pain. Sometimes you'll get a pain in your back or any kind of sensation. To notice the way where the mind starts and that sensation starts, with the boundary between those two. Like an ocean and its waves. And then the famous one of the captain on the boat in the middle of the ocean, allowing birds traveling on the boat to fly as they wish and go where they want. They always have to come back to the boat. So resting at ease without any attempt to keep the birds of thoughts and feelings and flow on the boat, at the same time not indulging in those thoughts and feelings, but simply noticing them and letting them come and go, and returning to the at ease posture. It was very wonderful when I recently had dinner at the late great Kyabje Gelek Rinpoche's home. I noticed he had a very old statue from Tibet of the royal ease posture of Shenrezi, of Buddha of compassion. That was very popular in ancient India and also popular in early days in Tibetan Buddhism, where they're sitting sort of like Tara with the left leg up and the right leg down, but the arm is behind and he's sort of leaning back like this, looking a little bit lazy. And this arm in the earth. So the royal ease is called. And that was often a symbol for the kind of relaxation of the Mahamudra posture. Royal ease, the Bodhisattva's royal ease. Royal because everyone is a king of their own little kingdom or a queen of their own little queendom, a prince of their own princedom, and so on. We're all in charge of our world. We are the great emperor or empress of our domain. Whether we like it or not, every decision we make influences the condition of our kingdom or queendom or empire, whatever we want to call it. Staying at royal ease while doing everything. When I've taught 6 yogas, I like to read the passage from Marpa on Mahamudra, to do without doing and speak without speaking and so forth. From within the mind of emptiness, all activities rise and fall. The 5th example or metaphor is when things get either just staying at ease becomes uneasy. When others starts to get sleepy or starts to get overly anxious thoughts or overly busy inner rumblings. Like the swordsman who takes out the swords and deflects all of the arrows by a very precise movement. And of course, we looked at one of those movements earlier. What was it? 1, 2, 3. Pa! It's both wakes one up from a sleepiness and also cuts off cyclic thought patterns. Like if during the lunch break or the dinner break, you went and, so Stephanie again went and checked how her stocks are doing. And they had just had this great fall yesterday that made her cry. Today they like tripled in value. So she's laughing. And you're sitting there trying to meditate and just thinking, wow, all of those millions of pennies, or maybe thousands, and the thought won't go away.
Or you could buy it.
Or yell, peh. But generally they say to look at the specific kind of thought pattern and apply whatever you think the best specific. So generally Mahamudra says it's best not to do that unless you have to. Just resting in the natural lucidity, joyful mind. Try to make it a habit that by itself is enough without any extra effort. But if it becomes obvious that it's not working, then to switch gears. And then the 6th one, body and mind, zero gravity. Like a little goose feather floating in the wind, down, goose down, floating in the wind. Often they say dandelion fluff, or fluff from a flower that floats on the wind, spreads its seed by popping out a big wind parachute and gets picked up by the wind and just carried almost as though it were zero gravity. Have a sense of body and mind as zero gravity.